meeting. So I think everyone's seen the agenda. This is our first meeting with kind of the new format and a new makeup of the team. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I'll do my best, as well as Maureen and others, to try to make sure we keep it on time. So with that, I'm going to turn it over. I think, do we still ask for any members of the public to speak at this meeting at the beginning? I know we did that in the past.
So what we do with the virtual meetings is that we ask members of the public, by way of the public notice, to have them send in their comments to the school modernization email. And I reach out to David Main, who is our communications manager, to ask David if he has received any comments. David?
I have not received any comments.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So I guess with that, we'll start with introductions. So I'm Tom Peterson. I'm the old timer. I've been on the BAC since its inception, really back when, and I'm going to chair for a little while before I move on. So next. Norm, you want to go next?
I'll go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Kenichi Onyagasi, and I am the Executive Director of Professional Business Development Group, PBDG. I'm co-chairing with Tom. I'm also squeaky new, so I will be learning and absorbing as well, but it's great to be in the space with everyone today. Should I just call someone? Passing it over to David. David Main.
Yeah. Hi, I'm David Main. I'm the communications manager for the bond program. And I'm going to pass it over to Laura.
Hi, Lauren Poling. I am the Senior Manager of Business Operations for the bond program. And I see Karen.
Hi, Karen Weiland. I'm a BAC member. Going on my third year. I'm retired from Providence Health and Services, where I held the Chief Planning and Design office. And I will pass it over to Dick.
Okay, I guess that's me. I'm Dick Steinberge. I've been a BAC member for a couple years, I guess. But otherwise, I'm retired and played golf today. So there you go. Who should I pass this on to? Andrew. No?
Why don't we go ahead and go to Norm?
Hi, Norm Dowdy. I've been on BAC for a little over a year. Retired at the end of 2019 after 40 years in the commercial construction industry, the last 36 years with R&H Construction. And I was up skiing on Mount Hood today. Fabulous day. Thanks.
Maybe for the sake of making this easier, we go ahead and go through the rest of our BAC members. Yeah. Greg, would you like to go next?
Yeah.
Yeah, Greg DiLoretto, member of the BAC for 1 year now. Thank you.
Thank you. Kara, did you introduce yourself already?
I did not. Kara Toronto. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Technology Association of Oregon, and I'm aspiring apparently to retire, so I could have golfed or skied today too.
Thank you. Darren?
Darren Lee?
Nope. Darren, BAC member.
Yeah, Darren. Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
Is it me, Darren? Darren
Yes.
Golden?
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, everybody.
Yes.
I'm getting my video figured out. My computer doesn't like Google Meets. I'm Darren Golden. I am a political consultant and contract lobbyist. And like everybody else, wishing, well, everyone who didn't get to the mountain, wishing I got to the mountain today.
Thank you. I am not seeing Beth Woodward on the call yet. Let's go ahead and
Or
do our board
Angela?
members and Angela. Yes, I missed Angela as well. She's showing up as an A for me. Angela, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm Angela Jarvis Holland. I'm the Executive Director of Northwest Disability Support, and I'm new to the BAC committee, but not new to work on several bonds and lots of equity initiatives in the past in partnership.
Thank you, Angela. Director DePass.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michelle DePass, Board Director.
Thank you. Director Brim Edwards.
Hi, everybody. Julia Brim Edwards, Board of Education.
Director Scott. Director Scott is away from his video, looks like. We have leadership in the house. Otherwise, I think with project managers, we will go ahead and wait for project managers to just introduce themselves as they present. But if we'd like to go ahead, Dan, perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself, and Claire as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm Dan Young. I am Chief Operating Officer, and it's good to see everyone.
And I'm Claire Hertz, Deputy Superintendent. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you. And Marina Cresswell, I'm the Senior Director of the Office of School Modernization. And I see that Beth has joined us. And Beth, if you'd like to introduce yourselves, we're just finishing up.
So sorry to be late. I'm Beth Woodward. I began on the BAC in about mid-year. And is there some other information you would like?
Nope, just doing a quick introduction. Thank you. Tom and Kenichi, may we go ahead to the next item on the agenda?
Yep. I think this was Dan, or you were going to do a little refresher on the review based on our retreats. So I think that's next on the agenda.
Okay, looks like I'm up. So good evening, everyone. We know we've got a really busy agenda tonight, but we thought, considering this is just our second meeting with our new BAC, it would be valuable to just briefly touch on some of the highlights that we hit on at our January retreat. So no surprises here, nothing new, just going through some of the finer points. So what you see in front of you is a really simple graphic, and it's certainly by no means a perfect illustration, but what's intended to do is just convey that the bond has various levels of oversight. Starting at the bottom here, we have PPS staff, and staff, I don't mean just OSM, I mean across the district PPS staff that are responsible for bond project and program outcomes. The district also has various auditors, including contract auditors, financial auditors, and performance auditors, all who dig into various details within their respective scopes of work. And of course, we have the BAC. And because the BAC has a broad purview, reporting purview, namely the overall scope of the bond, the general expectation is that the BAC's reporting is high level and provides that broad overview of the total program in relation to the voter approved scope, schedule, and budget. Next slide, please. So the BAC's charge, I don't think this is going to come as a surprise to anyone, but as outlined in the charter, the primary charge is to review progress of the bond against the voter approved scope, schedule, and budget, and report that progress to the board. So that's pretty straightforward. The BAC also provides advice to the board and staff on selective topics, which we call special topics. And okay, on this slide, what we've highlighted are the BAC deliverables. So meeting the BAC objectives that are in the charter, we effectively operationalize that through 3 primary deliverables. One is the quarterly or the regular update from the BAC to the board. The other is recommendations to the board, and 3 is recommendations to staff. And we've got just a simple graphic there over on the side where we highlight, we effectively have a triad relationship between the board, the BAC, and staff. And effectively, the BAC and staff both report up to the Board of Education. Next slide, please. Quarterly reports. So the primary deliverable, or the primary way that the BAC operationalizes their deliverable, is through these quarterly reports, these quarterly updates. And they're based on the meeting materials that we review tonight and our discussion. And again, they're tended to be high level and provide that overall broad program overview reporting update to the board. The updates also align to the charter. And it's probably worth noting, at least for our new members, that the board receives the same materials that the BAC receives. So they're one and the same. And at the same meeting that the Bond Accountability Committee provides their update to the board, staff provides an update as well. So staff kind of provides that granular detail, and then the BAC can provide that higher level blanket, if you will, of comments and progress reporting. Next, please.
Excuse me, Dan, I just saw a hand raised. I don't know if you're taking questions during your presentation or if you'd like people to wait. But if you could just state what your preference is.
I'm happy to answer as we go along. The less formal, the better for me.
Hey, Dan, it's Darren. Obvious question. The staff that prepares, can you go back one, the BAC materials that go out to the BAC and the larger board, there's obviously nothing that's kept out of that, correct? That would be pertinent to current projects, et cetera.
That is a great question. So yeah, so the intent of the materials is to be able to provide both the board and the BAC the information they need to provide that broad overview. And then we'll also talk about like the special topics. So we'll focus on individual topics. But the expectation is that these materials are the bulk materials and the BAC reviews them, and that's what they use to provide their update to the board. The expectation is that the BAC are otherwise able to get information. It is through these materials and the discussions that we have at these meetings.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So last couple slides, recommendations to the board. That is something that happens occasionally, that the board will ask the BAC to opine on a specific topic. We did that a little over a year ago, I suppose, when the board asked the BAC to specifically look into the cost estimating methodology of the 2020 bond. And so these recommendations, or these specific areas, are what we call our special topics, and that we're going to schedule into the BAC work plan. And next slide.
Sorry, one moment.
No worries. It's basically the same thing. Sometimes we ask the BAC for some advice or opinions on a specific topic. So we'll schedule what that topic is, we'll provide materials, and we'll have that discussion so the BAC can provide the requested recommendations or opinions. And then the next slide is the last one that I have. Oops, maybe it was already there. It was just a preview of the work plan we're going to talk about later at the end of the meeting. I know Tom has solicited some topics, and so we're going to have a discussion around the BAC work plan. So if there aren't any other questions, I'll turn it over to Marina.
Thank you. Sorry for that with the presentation. There's always technical challenges of one sort or another. Apparently tonight was my night. So program update. And these reports, for those of our members that were with us prior to 2021, these are new reports, new report format. We shared these with you at the retreat in January, but I'd just like to go over some of the information on the reports that you see in front of you. Talk a little bit about business equity. I'm just going to kind of walk through the pages as you see them. As a reminder, we provide cumulative and a rolling 12-month set of figures on our business equity numbers and our workforce equity is cumulative only. The business equity numbers come from payments that we have made. So this is information that is collected from our prime and subcontractors through our purchasing and contracting folks through software that they use based on payments that are made. So the information that you see does not show full contract values for business equity because, of course, we have a contract. If we've already paid out everything on the contract, you're going to see the full amount. But for those of our projects that are in progress currently, our CMGC projects in particular, they may have already bought out most of their work. They may already have a really good sense of what that business equity is going to be, but what you see in front of you is only the payments that have been made to date. So we are currently running at 14.3% for cumulative business equity across all categories. That is less than the goal amount of 18%. That is an aspirational goal. That is not a hard requirement. We do try very hard to get to that. However, we've been discussing for the last year some of the equity concerns with our bigger projects, and you'll see some of that in presentations later tonight. Because they are so large, they have a significant impact on the program as a whole. On the workforce equity side, just want to note, we have traditionally provided just the apprenticeship percentages. We have not broken out minority and female workforce numbers. We are breaking those out now. The apprenticeship is required. So our contractors are required to meet 20% apprenticeship. We are currently running at 25% across the program as a whole. And minority and female workforce participation, those are aspirational goals that were set, I believe in 2019, late 2019. We are currently above the goal on minority workforce, below the goal on female workforce. Moving on to budget. So I'm going to walk you through each of the three programs that we have. The 2012 program, we are mostly through with 2012. You'll see that we are 98% spent on our funding. Primarily what's left for 2012 are the Roosevelt Phase 4 project and Grant Upper Field improvements. So those are the two sort of major projects that are left being funded out of 2012. The rest of it, we are working through cleaning out all of the miscellaneous projects that were in 2012, sweeping all of the budgets and funding back to our program. And what you see anticipated in contingency is intended to provide remaining funding that is due to the Grant Upper Field project. They have a budget. We have not fully funded their budget yet. That will be coming out of my contingency. And whatever is remaining in contingency is intended to address any potential additional costs necessary for those two projects. For 2017 budgets.
Marina, before you go on, I don't know if anybody's monitoring, but I'm seeing hands raised, so I feel compelled to say that someone has a hand up.
Oh,
I don't know if
sorry,
that's
I wasn't
helpful but irritating.
Thank you, Director DePass. I did hear the sound. I was just starting to look around to see the hand. So, Greg, I believe you were first.
Yeah, so I'm just curious. You have the total budget for the 2012 bond program. We're 98% spent, and we're going to come under, looks like $800,000. Two questions. That's not the total amount of bonds that you sold, is it? You sold a number that included administration costs and other things that were put into there. Is that right? And so at the end of the 2012, if you had money, if you had bond proceeds left over, what happens to those also?
That is the total amount in the 2012 bond. That is all of the proceeds, whether it's the bonds themselves, its premiums, its interest earnings. That is the entire thing. And we are not yet in a position to have a discussion about what happens with leftover funds, because currently we do still have those two medium-sized projects that we do need to fund, and we need to ensure that we have the funding to do that, to finish them out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Darren?
Just a quick in regards to equity and as we're talking about in access, I would appreciate if, like, since this is a public meeting, if all tables and figures, we provide either a key for all abbreviations or don't abbreviate anything.
Understood. The key for the abbreviations in the presentation itself is later in the presentation, primarily in front of our project updates, because they also use the same set of abbreviations for their project updates. In the materials that we provided to the committee, we pulled out those abbreviations separately. So you should find a sheet in your materials that says status definitions, and that does include the definitions for all of those abbreviations. In the future, I'd be happy to put that status definition in front of the program update as well. Moving on to 2017. For 2017, we are roughly 55% spent of the funding for that. You will see that we have broken out our unallocated health and safety funds as a separate line item. With our unallocated health and safety funds, we had $150 million that was set aside for health and safety projects in 8 specific categories. The funds are considered what we call spend up funds. So we identify the criteria for selecting and prioritizing projects in those categories. We do that. We actually do the selection and prioritization based on those criteria, generally on an annual basis, since many of those projects occur over the summer. And we allocate funds to those projects as they are identified. So what you will see are the unallocated funds should continue to go down. The project funds should continue to go up. We're simply moving funds from one category to the next. In your packets, you should have received a report called the Health and Safety Funding Allocation Report. That report identifies all of the projects as well as the unallocated funds remaining for each of the 8 categories under the health and safety portion of the 2017 bond. And within 2017 contingency, I am still holding funds for, I just want to note a couple things in particular. We have within that contingency the $68 million premium that came from our last bond sale. That sits under that line item. So if you were wondering where that is, those of our members who were here with us previously, that's where it is. And we are anticipating transferring that to the Benson project as part of the funding for the budget that was already approved for the Benson project. But we're looking to coordinate the logistics of that in coordination with the 2020 funds that have been approved for Benson as well. So for now, it is currently sitting in a contingency, and you'll see that looks like a very healthy contingency. That's why. The contingency is also...
Has a prep question.
Yes, Dick.
Thank you, Marina. I guess you've just partly addressed my question, but I was pondering as I reviewed the materials how we were going to be able to understand. Well, we always knew that the 2017 program was going to have a very significant shortfall, which was going to be supported by the 2020 bond program. And so it seemed like at the moment there's sort of scope and cost one place and budget another place in a different bond program, and how we were going to be able to understand how to track those seems like a bit of a challenge still, but it sounds like you recognize that, and we're going to need to see something in the future that will help sort that out for us.
We absolutely recognize that there are always challenges in identifying all the sources of funding, particularly when those sources cross over different bond programs. We are currently including all of the funding for the 2020 under the 2020 program. We have set aside what we call unallocated projects, specifically to identify the funding that was noted for the 2017 balance. And we will have full transparency when we transfer that funding to the 2017 projects that need the funding. In this case, primarily Benson.
Yeah.
But again, it's a 2017 balance. So it is intended for the program as a whole.
Okay, that's helpful. I have a really minor technical point on the chart. For me, at least, the chart and the trend is really, really good. Really appreciate that. But I have a hard time translating on 2017, for example, what looks like just under a 3% program contingency into what that means in dollars. And I was going to, is that linked to one of the numbers in the table above? Or if not, maybe you could just, stick a number on the chart that shows the last data point in terms of dollars.
It is related at the start and the end, is probably the easiest way to put it. On this particular graph, the original budget contingency amount you see above of $20 million is that roughly 2.5% of 2018 quarter one. What you see at the end is the 93 that is current budget for contingency. But it seemed like it was probably a little bit easier to translate from bond program to bond program by using percentages as opposed to using rough dollar amounts, because they differ so significantly based on the total amount of the bond itself.
So the 2021 March program contingency is the 93 million then, is that?
That's correct.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So just as a note, some of the things that I'm currently holding within my contingency for 2017 program include still a set aside for corporate activity tax, because we are still in negotiations with some of our contractors regarding whether we will be paying those taxes or not. I am holding aside funding for COVID related costs. I think, as we've mentioned to the committee before, to the extent that our existing projects can contain COVID costs within their project budgets, they are doing so. However, I am holding backup within the program contingency for them. And we have been looking regularly at the costs that we have to date for COVID on each of the projects, as well as forecasting out through the end of 2021. I am also holding some set aside funding for Madison, which we've talked about previously. This was a long-standing arrangement that we had related to the agreement of Madison going into their GMP with a slightly smaller contingency amount within their project. I don't anticipate that we're necessarily going to need that, but I continue to hold it. And then
sorry, could I ask a question? With the funding that has come from the federal level, especially in the last plan, how is that feeding into the COVID needs? You're trying to make an allocation here, but it's been a pretty moving target with quite a lot of dollars attached to it. How is that going to factor into these issues?
So I think what you're asking about are federal funds that could be applied towards COVID costs.
Yes.
I have not included any assumptions of receiving those funds for our work. And I don't know if Dan would like to talk a little bit about the district requests for federal funding.
Yeah, I can say I don't have a lot of detail about the current status. What the Marina team have done is they have identified those costs and they have separated those costs in the accounting. And so if and when these construction costs become available for federal funding reimbursement, we have the number and we have the backup available. I have not heard, and I haven't inquired recently, I admit, but the last time I did inquire was that the thought was construction costs were still not going to be eligible, but that's something that we can follow up on, and we will follow up on.
Thank you, Dan. Angela, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I'm pretty interested in that issue, and I think it is a little unclear at the moment, but I'm presuming that Dan's tracking on that, and I'll look forward to hearing more if there's changes.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to the 2020 program. We don't actually have a significant amount of information here. Probably the one thing of note, obviously this is quite new. We do have some expenditures. You'll see those expenditures. Those are almost exclusively on the 2020 technology scope, which you will be hearing more about at the meeting in May. We'll have to look at our work plan. I believe it's in May that the technology group will be presenting. So.
I have a question, Maureen.
Yes.
Craig?
Have you gone out to market yet on those 2020 bonds? I know another organization I sit on their group, they just sold their muni bonds for 0.84% interest. And I was wondering if you folks have gone out. Have you done that yet?
We sold our first set of bonds in December.
What was the interest rate, do you recall?
I do not recall that offhand. We could certainly find that information for you.
Yeah, it's okay. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, a couple quick program notes. Staffing. So I wanted to do two quick introductions on the management side of things. Darren Lee. Darren, can you say hello?
Yes, I'm Darren Lee, the new PPS Director of Construction. I've been with the OSM program since 2014, about midway through the 2012 bond. I've been fulfilling the role of Director of Construction as a consultant, as an interim position for 1.5 years, and then decided to become a PPS employee.
We're happy that Darren likes us enough to come to the dark side. So, I also want to introduce Lauren. And Lauren, if you don't mind saying hi real quick.
Hi, everyone. I know I introduced myself at the beginning, but Lauren Poling. I joined PPS in January of this year. I have a CPA and a background in auditing and worked with a transportation engineering firm before coming to PPS.
Thank you, Lauren. So Darren and Lauren essentially oversee two branches of OSM. Lauren will be overseeing our operations side, which is the centralized support for all the project management work that occurs. Darren, of course, is overseeing project management. We do have another position that we're looking to recruit that will address diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what I've got there is essentially a working title. The final title that may change, but the intent is really to embed equity within the Office of School Modernization in many different ways. That is still under review, and we're working out the details of that. On sort of further staffing, on the operations side of things, we have added 2 new invoicing specialists, and I say added, one of them is an addition, the other one is actually a replacement for somebody who retired. But Tao Din and Juan Ledesma started with us both, I believe, in January. Our new eBuilder administrator, David Manu, joined us in January as well. Is already starting to whip us into shape on our eBuilder work. And we are also developing a recruitment to boost our finance staff. As we add in the 2020 bond work, we have need not just for new project managers to manage the work, but also for support staff to really support the processes that go along with it. On the project management side of things, we added 3 new project manager 1 positions over the course of December and January. Hector Lopez, Devin Graham, Kevin Hine. I think we mentioned them briefly at the retreat as well. And we are undergoing 2 recruitments currently. One of them is for PM2s, the other is for PM3s. They are intended to staff the many projects that we have coming forward for 2020 bond. We are in the process. We've got some people that just started, some people that we have offers that they've accepted and they're going through background checks. We have others that we have put out offers and others that we're still interviewing. So we're really kind of right in the thick of things for both of those different types of positions.
May I ask a quick question, Marina?
Certainly.
I'm really excited about this, like this new energy and the new teams that are being built. It's like, I love building new teams. I find it much more exciting than old, like 10-year-old teams. I'm wondering if when you're looking for positions, if you're recruiting in places that will increase our diversity in our staff. And that I'm thinking about places like the Oregon Association of Minority Entrepreneurs and the Minority Chambers of Commerce around town, where some of the chambers have more construction engineering related facilities members, but are we intentionally reaching out to try to diversify our staff? And are we, I mean, are we doing that, actively recruiting?
Yes, we are actively recruiting with those types of organizations. I can get you a list, but I will tell you that we continue to add to it and we continue to try to, find more options. I will also say that one of the things that we started last year is we started reaching out to the alumni associations for the historically Black colleges and universities.
Excellent.
And Darren, that is us internally, that is PPS doing recruiting, that is not third-party recruiting. What we have found with third-party recruiting is that they don't actually do a very good job of reaching out to those types of organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to boost our efforts in that area as well.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, Angela, could you go ahead and just tell us what that question is? It's a little bit easier if we do these questions verbally than doing them through the comments.
Sure, I was trying to not take too much space.
Thank you.
Just in the diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's been an experience I've often had that ableism means that we can forget the broader meaning of that. And we've got a lot going on with ADA. And in this bond, there's things about differentiated instruction and assistive technology, as well as IT, AT and IT. So those are new areas. And I think we're all feeling how many things are on the list. I know Michelle and I had some good conversations about this. Is that in that consideration? And outside of this meeting, I'd just like to know a little more about that position, and like Michelle, where and how are we reaching out to community to have applicants for those positions too? Thank you.
Happy to provide more information as we get to the point where we're able to do that. We're currently very much in the process of reviewing the position responsibilities and what might be possible within that position. And once we've been able to fine tune that internally, then we can share that out as well. But we are not yet ready to actually put the recruitment out. And when we do put the recruitment out, we will definitely be reaching out to all of our partners to assist us in filling it with the best and perfect applicant.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And that actually is a good segue into the equity notes, which is to say that we have been meeting regularly with leadership and our purchasing and contracting folks as well to talk through some of the things that we're working on that are equity related. So trying to improve processes to be more inclusive. We are, as I mentioned, looking at that additional position and trying to sort of fine tune what the responsibilities would be. We also have been working with purchasing and contracting to revise criteria within our RFPs to put a greater focus on equity and to standardize how we award points for our equity criteria to make sure that we are awarding the same percentage of points across all of our RFPs. So it's not individualized based on what different project managers think are important. Kenichi?
I have a question. Sorry, I was a little slow on the take, but the diversity, equity, and inclusion manager, is that the same position that would also be doing targeted outreach within the community to recruit firms? Okay.
Yes.
Because I think that's certainly something that I know will be very important in trying to get the numbers up.
Yes, I agree. And I think what we're seeing is the potential for that position to work on multiple fronts. And we have traditionally seen in Oregon public sector that that outreach effort tends to take place within our purchasing and contracting departments. We would actually like to see a position that includes more than just outreach, that really starts to go to the heart of how we manage construction and how we manage projects and the processes that we go through to really ensure that our processes are as inclusive as they can be. And so while that outreach is a significant part of the position, it's not the only thing by any stretch.
Okay. This person.
I really appreciate your question, Kenichi, and also that we're being intentional, not just about like plucking somebody and having them do outreach, but that it's a deeper look at our how we're showing up in the world. I think that's really great. I'm really happy to hear this.
We are, as you saw from the work plan earlier, we are hoping to come back to you with an equity update at one of our future meetings. And I'm unfortunately, if I pull it up on my computer right now, I'll probably lose track of the presentation. So I can tell you, I think it's either the next meeting or the one after, and I suspect Dan is going to go look at it and let you know. And while he's doing that, I will just note our performance auditors are currently doing field work for year 3. Thank you, Lauren. We are anticipating coming back in July for the equity update. Performance auditors, we are developing the draft work plan for year 4. So year 3, we will essentially be concluding at the sort of end of spring, early summer. The report itself won't be finalized most likely until early July. So we anticipate that won't be presented to board committees until they return from the summer recess. And the BAC will be part of that presentation as well. Year 4 work typically starts in the fall, and we're developing the draft work plan. That will be coming in May to the BAC. So we will be asking our auditors to present the draft work plan to you so we can get some input from you on that. We have completed midpoint construction audits for McDaniel High School and Lincoln High School modernization projects. And we are underway with the final audit for Grant. And then just a couple quick notes about the 2020 bond. Obviously, we are starting up that work. There's a lot that needs to go into the startup process of it. So we've been working closely with operations staff to develop all of our procedures for oversight, particularly for those scopes of work that are not traditionally managed through OSM. So the technology and curriculum scopes of work. The Senior Director for the Office of School Manager acts as the budget manager for all bond funds, regardless of whether the functional work is occurring within OSM or not. So because of that, review and approval of expenditures and encumbrances has to go through OSM for our approval as well. And there's a number of procedures that we're going to have to figure out. And we're in the process of doing that right now. We are setting up projects in eBuilder. We've got most of them in there, doing some refining on it. And we are working to collect information and develop goals and put together implementation plans for the scopes of work that we consider infrastructure scopes of work. So the seismic, the roofing, the mechanical, SPED, and ADA, those scopes of work are all going to need plans in order to move forward. And we're working on that process as well. And as I mentioned before, we're doing recruitments to staff the work.
Kenichi, you had a question?
Yes, thank you.
I just forgot to lower my hand.
Oh, okay.
And if there are no questions, we'll move on to the modernization project updates. And my Karen, you're on mute.
Yeah, so just one question on the grant, the grant final payment audit. But but that doesn't include the upper field improvements. Is that correct? Okay, and so that's outside of that scope.
It is outside of that scope. We audit based on contract. And so that is based on the CMGC contract for the grant high school modernization. The grant upper field improvements is contracted separately.
Okay, that's fine.
And so it's not included. Okay. And we are going to start here. Darren, is that set as status definitions? This is really just to give you some background on the colors you're going to see on our progress reports for our modernization projects and other projects coming up in the future. And also it does provide the definitions for those abbreviations. And I would like to introduce Steve Efros, who is our Senior Project Manager for the Kellogg Middle School Replacement Project.
Very good. Thank
Maureen,
you,
if I could just jump in for a second. We're running just a little long from the agenda, so I'd ask the program updates to try to keep it somewhat succinct so we keep it moving along on schedule. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I will definitely try to move through this quickly. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. Very quickly, I will start with this kind of first sheet, the status at a glance, kind of run through those items. And then after that, we can go through some current photos and I'll kind of give you an update on the current progress of the project. So in terms of the data, the first item, the budget, our current forecasts show the project coming in under budget, which is great news. And that actually includes a handful of smaller post-occupancy project allowances. So we're coordinating with several different stakeholders on some of that, but very happy to be coming in under budget. In terms of equity, broken down in terms of consultants and contractors, our consultants actually, primarily our design firm, did not break out their prime and subcontractor participation. So the number is actually closer to 64% of WBE or women-owned business and some smaller miscellaneous sub-consultants. The contractors are definitely lower than the aspirational goal. We had a prime minority-owned business for the demo phase of the Kellogg project, but during new construction as a hard bid project, we're coming in obviously significantly lower than the aspirational target. Did someone raise?
Yes, Norm
yes.
raised his hand.
Yes.
Yeah, quick question on the budget. You mentioned coming in under budget by about $1 million. So is that in addition to the contingency? So the current status would be it's looking to come in 4.7 million?
No, a lot of the contingency has currently been assigned to a variety of categories. Some of them that we pulled out include the COVID costs, as well as potential CAT tax costs. And then there are kind of, again, some of these final allowances that relate to post-occupancy projects. We're being, I think, somewhat conservative in assigning about $1 million under. It could potentially exceed that, but currently we have, you know, a big, pretty significant chunk of that contingency assigned to kind of identifiable allowances or risks that before.
So contingency remaining really isn't. I mean, you're planning on. You've already identified a bunch of that's going to be spent.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Sorry,
then Kenichi.
Kenichi, you're next.
Thank you. I didn't know if you were going to go further into the equity piece, and so I don't want to jump the gun, but I certainly have questions on that. So do you have more to cover?
Not really. I think the workforce piece is pretty self-explanatory. So yes, if you have a question, I can definitely respond to that.
Great. So with the contractor, did they submit a plan on how they were going to do outreach on this phase of the project, or just the project in general, and what the barriers were in being able to get more MBEs involved in both consulting and contractors? The number looks very skewed, and I'm curious what the plan was originally.
Yes, so this was, you know, it was an alternate procurement approach, but not sort of the mainstream PPS, like the larger high school projects typically use CMGC, where there's a lot more ability to kind of help shape the equity approach. So we had a first phase qualifications RFP, but then a totally separate, we basically pre-qualified several firms, but then a totally separate, basically invitation to bid process. So in the first phase, they had, I think, their own kind of aspirational goals, but there was no connection, unfortunately, in terms of enforcement or even the same kind of ability to negotiate with the contractor that you would have in the CMGC approach. I don't have data or information in terms of the contractors. They presented an approach during the RFP, but I don't have data about exactly how some of those firms responded during the actual bidding process. But that's something we could gather for feedback to the BAC.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I think I'd be curious what their pool looked like to start with for them to get to this number, and certainly how we can help kind of have more diversity than this. Yeah, so.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Dick?
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to follow up a little bit more on the contingency question. I guess I'm a little troubled by the notion that the contingency number of 3.7 million is already partly at least been earmarked or committed to known requirements. In my humble view, the remaining contingency should be the amount that's left over uncommitted to any purpose whatsoever that can be foreseen. And I think the BAC needs to know what that number is. And it doesn't sound like it's 3.7 million.
Yes, that is correct, and that's something that we could break out separately. I think part of it is we're kind of transitioning out of the major portion of the project into substantial and eventually final completion. So we're sort of, the idea of risk kind of starts to change as we essentially reach final completion. So I think this would have been, and it has been more relevant, I think, leading up to final completion, as we still have kind of issues that we have to address. But yeah, I think we could further break that out and make it clear, you know, what's anticipated that we're not going to have to touch.
I think this is for me at least, it's a fundamental question regarding how all of this data is presented with respect to what the current approved budget number is, the estimate at completion, and what the remaining contingency is. It seems, in my way of thinking, at least, the estimate at completion should reflect the project manager in all projects. I'm not just picking on you. In all projects, the project manager's best estimate of what the final cost is going to be at the end of the day of the project. And some of that is committed in change orders, some of it's the original contract, some of it is risks that the project manager understands and puts a metric on. And then what's left over beyond that is the remaining project contingency that doesn't seem to at the moment to be necessarily required for anything else. And it doesn't look to me like that's the way these numbers are constructed. And so I'm confused about not just this one, but for all of the project data sheets, how you're really developing those numbers and portraying them. I don't understand.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that, and it's how you kind of slice it, and particularly also where you are in the overall schedule of the project, I think would also determine how you present that data. And I think we are definitely shifting into that much more identifiable phase as well.
Yeah, I guess I don't see that it has anything to do with the phase of the project. I do recognize that as you get further and further along in a project, the needed contingency, and your chart kind of showed that with the colors at the beginning, the needed amount of contingency to feel comfortable with where one is financially goes down and down, and it may well go to zero at the very final completion of the project, which is okay. But I think the concept should be continuous throughout the life of the project. At least that's the way I think about it.
So I would like to note that the estimate of completion does include everybody's best forecast of what the project is going to cost at the completion of the project, whether that is over or under. The contingency amounts that they have provided or the contingency of what is remaining that has not been committed. You know, when Mr. Efros is talking about contingency and his potential use of that contingency, he has not committed those funds. There are certainly options out there. There are things that he's looking at. But at this time, those are simply part of his forecast. The funds themselves are not committed. So the estimate at completion is an accurate forecast of what he believes the project is going to ultimately cost.
And so, just to piggyback on that, what the estimated remaining at the end of the project is the over/under. So that is the $1 million.
Darren, I believe you have your hand up as well. Would you like to go?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to figure out if we could get the numbers for the amount of MBEs, WBEs, SDVBEs, ESBs, and NCs that were contacted or applied and then not accepted, so that we could see what the percentage would be if they were all accepted or why they were denied.
I think definitely we can reach out. We were looking to feedback from the prime contractor, and we can figure out how to break those numbers down in terms of their outreach versus to individual categories and to individual firms.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Director DePass?
Thank you. I was also just kind of following Kenichi's comment, really concerned about that the low MBE, minority business enterprise numbers, and knowing that we're hiring someone that will specialize in outreach. But also, I'm curious if there are any other interventions. What I'm worried about is not just the dearth of utilization here, the low percentage, but also that general contractors in our community, thinking that we're okay with this. And so I'm looking at the reputational risk, and we would never want these numbers to be out there. We want them to be higher. They need to be higher. I'm just wondering, have we thought about other additional interventions besides hiring somebody? There's got to be. What else can we do to get those numbers up? It's just quite low compared to other public entities. And I'm particularly concerned because we're talking about the bond that, Portlanders passed, and some of those Portlanders are probably MBE, have a stake in the skin in the game, and for various reasons voted yes on this, in hopes that particularly because we're going to be rebuilding Jefferson High School, we're going to be building a Center for Black Student Excellence. That it's important to me that we see numbers that are much higher than that, and that are completely reflective of the market availability of these contractors in our community.
Okay, I'm going to jump in. I have a couple of thoughts. One, kind of echoing what Dick was saying, I'm still a bit confused, but so just for clarity, is it fair to say that that 3.7 million remaining contingency is embedded in the estimated completion, or is it a separate on the side? I'm still confused.
It is embedded. We were
And then,
asked when
secondly,
we developed these reports to pull out the contingency separately for people to look at it. So that is what we did, but it is embedded in the estimated completion.
Okay. All right, that helps clarify that. And then secondly, regarding the equity issue, and listening to a lot of Kenichi and Darren in your comments, a lot of those are based on contracts that have done a disparity study and can set hard goals so that when you award the contract, you can see their plan and then you can monitor against it. And it also kind of influence whether you even award the contract to that contractor. Unfortunately, PPS doesn't have that basis. So all of these are aspirational goals. So it's much more difficult for these hard bid projects to try to encourage and get these contractors, because you don't have the same kind of leverage you have as when you have done a disparity study. So to me, something that the school district ought to consider, particularly with these bond programs going on for a long, long time, is it may be worth the investment in doing the disparity study. So when you do these hard bid works, you have you'll have better success with these types of contracts. And trying to compare these to CMDC contracts, they're apples and oranges, because you have way more flexibility in a CMDC contract to meet these goals. So I just wanted to point that out. I've pointed this out repeatedly over my 8 years on the program, that this is always going to be a challenge until the district does that disparity study and can start setting hard goals and really holding the contractors more accountable. That's my 2 cents.
Well, I guess the question then is what's stopping us from,
Tom.
Yeah, what's stopping us from doing that study?
Well, I think that's, I was going to, following on Tom's comment, thank you for your comment. And also, many times, several public agencies will coordinate a disparity study. So I know the Port of Portland has been involved, Prosper Portland, when they were PDC, and the city of Portland, Multnomah County. And so if it's a multiple agency effort, it's a little bit less of a lift per agency, but it does give us that hard information and that market analysis as well. So that might be something to consider, considering the amount of this bond and I mean, those studies are kind of long-term, but I think that's a great idea.
We have certainly looked at disparity studies. I did want to just remind those of you that were here previously and let the new members know that our performance auditors this year are looking very specifically at business equity. They're also reviewing what other agencies have done in the area, what other school districts are doing. One of the things that they are looking at are disparity studies. And so we anticipate with the report from this year that we are going to get a lot more background about what other agencies are doing, how successful those efforts have been, and any findings or recommendations that they might have for us to move forward with those types of things. So I just wanted to note that. That is one of the reasons why we put the business equity update in May, because we were hoping that we could have some more information from that field work that they've been doing this year, that we could then share some of that with you as well. Beth?
Yeah, thanks. I've reviewed that one disparity study that PDC did as an auditor quite a few years ago, but I don't think that's the magic solution. It will not increase the number of contractors in the area, and this has a lot to do with structural racism in the community. And I wish we could do something really innovative, like invest in MBE contractors ourselves. I mean, the school. Board. I mean, with some of this money, I think it would be great to do something truly innovative instead of, and I also know a disparity study was, I mean, that document was inches thick with appendices, and I can't see that getting done in time to be useful on the 2020 bond. I just think we need to come up with solutions that face the structural racism that has caused this shortage. Thank you.
And thank you for calling it out too. It takes a lot of courage to do that.
I think as I was looking at the agenda in subsequent meetings, this will be a good topic where we can get into more detail. So with that, we probably ought to move on because we're still running a little late. So.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I'll move very quickly. Schedule is pretty straightforward. We're on schedule working with the district's Kellogg Middle School Planning Group, as well as our operational groups on the transition process ahead of the summer and the fall. Maybe Marina, if you want to, or whoever's controlling this, move to the photos. So we are obviously substantially complete on the project. We're doing a lot of the building commissioning, technology, FF&E, punch list, and final site work. And you can see a couple images there of the site. Maybe move to the next one. So a few of the larger spaces, the performing arts and combined performing arts and gym space. You can see a lot of the acoustics in that space, as well as in the next couple spaces, the common, or actually the music room in particular. The commons, you can start to see a lot of the salvage material from the original Kellogg Middle School, and you'll see more of that if you could proceed to the next set of photos. So this is, I think, one of our, I think, prouder moments. We were able to reconstruct one of the original portals from the original Kellogg Middle School as the entry to the media center library. This was prior to the doors being installed, so it will have doors. And then a couple of typical classroom, science classroom and extended learning areas. You can see a little bit of the color, use of colors, which each floor is kind of color coded for wayfinding for the middle school students. And then I think the final set of photos, if you could go to that. And I just wanted to share a couple of the outdoor spaces, one at the corner of Powell and 69th, and one is the interior courtyard with, I think, some really cool inspirational words and quotes that we were able to embed onto the site. So just kind of looking forward to the community finally able to visit in the summer and fall. be able to take a look at that. Just final risks, I guess, obviously with several more months until we kind of do a handover to operations, we're just taking a lot of measures to make sure that we protect the site and the security of the building. And then the final step, which fortunately came through just this week, is we'll be installing or setting up a school speed zone on Powell in this general vicinity with some flashing beacons to help provide some additional safety. So we got approval from ODOT just this week. So yeah, that's pretty much wraps up that presentation. Any final questions?
Looks great.
Thank you.
Nice job.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Jesse, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, I am Jessie Steiger. I am the project manager for McDaniel High School, previously Madison. We are clocking in straight across the board here in the yellow categories. COVID hit just in the right amount of time where our building was really starting to get closed in. And we've taken a lot of hits to schedule with that. That's the thing that I think I lose the most sleep over. We're able to finish the summer. It's pretty tight. We're finishing about the same time of the year as Grant did. So we know it's doable, but it is April. COVID is still a thing. And I would say still a fairly considerable risk. Though, and I feel reluctant to say it out loud because I don't want to jinx ourselves, but we haven't had any positive COVID tests or results since January. So the last couple months have been pretty quiet, which is nice. But the fires in September ate up all of our last weather days, and the whole team's been working quite a bit of overtime since then. So it's a tremendous effort that the whole team's been putting in to deliver this school for us on time. But we're very confident that we will get there. Budget is also tight but manageable. If we subtract out COVID costs, we have a little bit of a buffer, and I think I would be able to return some money back to the program. Right now, with COVID costs, we're anticipating that we'll be able to cover some of them, but we will need some help from the program to cover the rest. So, so at this point in time, I'm currently showing the job is on budget with no over under because it is tight enough. And then the current amount of contingency remaining for all of the money spent is the 6.5 million. But there would be other pending change orders that have kind of already allocated some of that money. Any budget and schedule questions before I move to equity?
I have a question, if I may. So you think you're going to make it, but is this one going to be similar to Roosevelt, perhaps, where there'll be some work going on after they move in, or do you think you're going to be able to hit the target still?
I think we'll have most of it done. One thing with COVID is throughout the course of the project, we've hardly been able to have staff come through the building. We were just able to have them do that recently. Even some of our maintenance staff, we weren't. So that regular, eyes on the building and catching some stuff maybe that isn't how people anticipated it is that hasn't been able to happen as much on other projects. And so we've already been thinking about some stuff to guarantee that we can finish on time. That, yeah, we'll probably have to create a list of small things to be considered more day 2 things, and that we would be doing some work in the building into the fall. And then there was another raised hand.
Dick.
Yeah, a couple things. One on schedule, one on the budget. First on schedule, and this is perhaps a general comment for the way the schedule bar charts are laid out, and I appreciate how they're structured. I think one observation I would make, though, is since the increments are in quarterly segments, when the schedule shows construction and school opening in the same quarter, that doesn't really tell us as a BAC whether the school's going to be open on time or be ready to be opened on time, or if construction is 3 months late, right? Because that's a huge, so it might be helpful to, and you've indicated the next milestone in this particular case is TCO and it's on track. Maybe giving us the date on that and what we think the school opening date would be a little bit finer detail to help us understand what the schedule chart is saying, because that's pretty macro stuff, just showing quarterly amounts. And that's kind of a general comment about the schedule displays. I think I read, regarding budget, I think I read in the notes that the estimate of the COVID impact was 2.1 million that hasn't been accounted for in the project costs and would be apparently supported by the program contingency. And so I'm wondering, was 2.1 million reduced out of the program contingency chart we saw before? And then it just seems to me it would be a lot better, and maybe you're going to do this anyway, is to transfer the 2.1 million out of program contingency into the project's budget so that all the expenditures related to the project, I mean, COVID was a thing, but it impacted this project, and it was fundamentally it's part of the project costs. And it seems like all the money ought to flow into the project and be expended out of there at the end of the day. So several things. I'll stop now.
I just want to note that the program has anticipated the COVID costs in their contingency, including these costs for the McDaniel High School modernization. And the decision that I have made is that we are going to wait to see how much of those COVID costs can be covered by the project budgets before we transfer any program funds into the project budgets. So to the extent that it's necessary, we will transfer them in. From a schedule perspective, my expectation is that staff will be providing any sort of update that indicates we are not going to meet a school opening schedule. It's a pretty significant issue if that's the case. And I would certainly expect that to be called out on their progress reports, whether that's clear from the graphic. At that point, it should be very well called out.
You ready for me to go back? Okay. So for equity, our consultant team has done, I think, pretty well at 37%. Wait, what does that say? The contractor? I'm sorry, something doesn't seem quite right at 3%. I know, yeah, something is off. It was low. It was at like 7%. And part of this exercise, we did discover that some of the subcontractors were behind in reporting their data. We are currently at 10.5% overall. It is obviously still lower than 18, and we are projecting at the end to be at 12%. But I don't really understand what happened to this chart because this doesn't look correct to me. Yes, Norman?
Quick question. What was the contracting methodology for this project? Was it CMGC or was it the RFP bid?
It's a CMGC project.
Okay. And I just want to note, I was going to do this as a follow-up, but I think it would be great for the new members of BAC to see the Benson presentation on contracting plan that was there, that for some of the upcoming projects, that there is, I think, a much better approach to equity. Is that fair?
That is very fair.
Okay. Not minimizing the downfalls on the last project we saw. But I think that I was really impressed by Anderson's presentation on their whole equity contracting plan. It'd be great to share that with everybody.
We're happy to send out a link to the materials that are available. They're available on our website. We're happy to share that. I'd also be happy to share the presentation that the McDaniel project team prepared to talk about the efforts that they went through with their outreach. So many of you who were not here in 2020 were not part of the presentation that the team put together to help explain the numbers that they currently have and that they anticipate having at the end of the project as well. So I will be sure to send out a link to that information as well, because I think you'll find it very helpful too.
So I'm sorry this got messed up. I don't really know how that happened, but we are at 10.5% for contractors, which put the overall at, oh, I don't remember off the top of my head. So it got it up over the 10%, which is why I put it in yellow. Okay. Sorry, any other questions on that? We can go to the photos. Here's an aerial shot. So you're kind of looking at some new construction areas with the solar panels on. And the exterior at this point is largely complete. We're just finishing up a few of these kind of main entry points into the courtyards. And next slide. This is our new baseball, softball, and soccer field. It's all turf and will be now the most comprehensive athletic facilities that PPS has on site. So I know the Central Athletics is pretty excited about that, so is the school. And then next slide. These are a little further along now. We're actually doing our first test punch list of a classroom tomorrow morning, and we're going to be starting to do punch lists in several sections of the building starting in mid-April. So you can see a science lab in progress. The theater and the gym are some of the areas that will take the longest, and we'll be finishing towards the end, which actually works kind of nice because it lets us finish all of our rooms, all of our classrooms, start to move in furniture while we finish up these bigger spaces that don't have a lot of furniture going in them. And then you can see the commons there on the lower left. That gets a really beautiful wood ceiling that should start here in a couple weeks. And yeah, everything actually on site, it's really hopping, it's going great. And we finally got a couple teachers, a small tour group in. And while I was walking them out, one of the teachers said something like, "Man, I don't think I've ever been sad to leave work before." So they're really excited, and it was really nice to show them a new building after a year of online teaching. I think they're all pretty tired of it. So yeah, any questions on our progress?
I have a quick question, not about the progress, but wondering if other BAC members would be interested, as am I, on getting a tour prior to opening.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's do something fun for a change.
Sign me up. Sign me up.
I was hoping for a tour of Kellogg also. So
that too.
Maybe that's a summer thing.
Absolutely.
I think in general, we've been, we used to do tours prior to our BAC meetings. With the COVID, we have been reluctant to have significant people on site, particularly when we have projects that have 300 contractors working at any given time. It seems like an awful lot of risk to expose our BAC members and board members. And so we've been pretty cautious in trying to put together any sort of tours. I think as we're heading into a phase now where there's more vaccinations available and more people are getting vaccinated, that's certainly going to change the dynamic. So stay tuned. We'll try to work something out. And it may be that we look to do it in smaller numbers to, again, be very thoughtful about risk of exposure.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Lincoln. Eric, would you like to introduce yourself first, please? Eric, you're on mute. Or you're not, your sound is not coming through.
Technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties. Would you like us to jump ahead to the Benson project while you figure out your sound? Okay. All right. Brian?
I think my tech's working okay for now. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. My name is Brian O'Lear, PM overseeing the Benson program. And update for the update for this time around is broken down. We've broken it down for the into the Benson proper or Benson High School modernization itself on the Benson campus. We have a report on the MPG building, and then a separate report for the swing site at Marshall in the swing site program. So the report's broken down into those three topics. There's a separate cover sheet that goes with each. Just a couple of notes on the report before I jump into specific updates is that you may have noticed these already, but just wanted to recap. For the three reports, the budget and the schedule are showing specific to those particular projects or areas of the Benson program. But the equity right now is shown as a combined number for all three for whatever data that we have at this time. So I'm going to touch on that just a little bit further when I get down to the equity piece here on the slide. Overall, we're showing yellow in budget and equity and green on schedule. In terms of the budget, we've entered the numbers per the latest forecast. And for the Benson High School itself, we're still on the original budget at $281,940,000. The contingency number that is shown there, I think I put it in the notes that you guys can see, is that the contingency number that we are showing here, we decided to show just what's outside of the GMP. So it is not the total contingency in the project, but it's just of the three pots of contingency, this is only one of them. That's outside what would be, if we went to contract today, it would be out at that contingency number outside the GMP contract, so to speak, for contractor and owner contingency within that. For the equity piece, there are a couple of things that are in development. Benson's really early in the process. We have just a little bit of data on the contractor side for work that they've been doing at Marshall TI on the Marshall campus for that swing site. And we have some things that we need to address for next time. You'll see that the consultants number, for instance, of 15% is underreported we're finding for some reason it's underreporting what was Bassetti has in their records. So we're trying to chase that down right now. And then also there's something going on because some of the certified firms that are still certified aren't showing up that way in the reports that are coming out. So suffice to say, this is a work in progress. This is certainly a work in progress that we're going to look to improve those and get true data for the future report. In terms of schedule, the next milestone coming up is the 100% CD phase, which is due to come out here in around the September timeframe, or what's showing here is the third quarter of 2021.
Brian, did you want to let Norm ask his, Norm, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was just wondering on the equity, if part of the disconnect might be that it's being calculated as percentage of payments made versus contracted amounts.
Yeah, that is one issue, certainly. And since the data takes into account the whole $357 million program, it's going to be skewed. We're so early, so even progress payments at this time aren't going to show much. But what is actually happening specifically here is there's something that's happening in the reporting at the B2G level in the way that it is capturing the contracts for Anderson between the 4 projects. So we're working on that and hope to get that solved for next time.
And for those of you who don't know, B2G is the software that our procurement department uses to collect the business equity data. So that is a software that prime and subcontractors report in on their equity data, and it's tied to our payments. Kenichi?
Kenichi,
Thanks for the report. I would say for next time, what might be helpful and really to provide some color when these technical glitches happen is maybe having a short list or something on the firms that are working on the project so that we can have some color. I'm interested. I've heard a lot about this project. I've certainly had Anderson present the project at various trade associations. So I know they're recruiting. So in the event that we continue to have the glitch, and honestly, for a little bit more color to even see the firms that are participating would be helpful.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions at this time? If not, we can move to the next slide. So just a couple photographs here where, like I said, we're early in construction, so we don't have the big equipment or tower crane of construction. But the progress that we have made since over this last period of time has been mostly related to design development. As you can see, with completion of 100% DD and into, we're now well into CD phase. Just one thing of note we wanted to highlight was that uniqueness of Benson was all of the major manufacturing equipment that comes out of this building. So this is as good as it gets for FF&E move out, but we are really neck deep into that process right now, cleaning out all of the old equipment. It is a monster of a coordination effort that the team has been doing an unbelievable job at. But one of the things that's unique about this project too is all the stuff that all of these items are going up on that are sellable are going up onto the GovAuctions website. So to date, we've actually sold just as of last week, we've sold over $40,000 worth of existing equipment to the general public on the GovAuctions site that's coming back to the district and to Benson. So that's a really good story. And there's more to go. So we're not even halfway through that process of things that we're selling yet. So optimistic.
Did the piece of equipment where the boys in the 1970s used to make those acrylic rings and they were like highly valuable? You know, there's a piece of equipment that stamped out these acrylic rings that were really cool.
Yeah, I don't know about that one specifically, but I can certainly see. They are, you know, there is going to be a foundry remaining, and so I know that there was some pretty cool stuff they made every year for the tech show out of the foundry, and that's all that is not going up on GovAuction, but some of this stuff is. Yeah, it's been fun to see. Okay, next picture.
So Michelle, are you interested in purchasing it? Or?
Yeah.
I actually might be.
Yeah, there's a lot of arc welders going up next. So if you're into arc welding, take a peek. The next slide here is we just want to show a snapshot of some things that we're capturing as we go, and the decision for PISA not to come back to Benson. We're in real time addressing design impacts to that to make sure we capture those savings. and make the design efficient with that decision being made. So there is some opportunity for some cost savings here. There were classrooms up in the main part of Benson, the main building of original building of Benson, and so we're going to capture that back into some general classroom space and swap that out for areas that are more appropriate for and we'll give some much needed storage space that was I would say at a premium here in the design process. So
do you mind clarifying what PISA? What is
I'm
PISA?
sorry. That was the International Scholars program. So okay, yeah. So for on the status for the multiple pathways building. Again, very early in process. We are in. We just completed the SD phase and are into early parts of the design development phase. So no real big adjustments yet on the schedule to date. We're just doing some of the final analysis of the SD numbers and things of that nature. So for the next meeting, we'll have a deeper update on terms of health of the estimates and the budget at that time. But currently we're at about 63.7 million for the overall budget for that, with the original contingencies remaining that you've seen before. Again, shared equity report. So this is the same as we were showing on Benson. And then in terms of the schedule, our next milestone will be coming up again towards the end of summer timeframe, or around the end, sometime in the middle to late summer for 100% SD.
Norm?
Yep, sorry, Norm.
Yeah, real quickly, I noticed for this presentation, the backup material had the project notes that kind of talked about, progress, accomplishments, and risk. And it would be great for this presentation, and I know that was for brevity, but if we could have the risk portion, because I know on Benson and multiple pathways, the risks we're talking about were some budget potential concerns that have been brought up, I think, our last meeting. So Brian, I know here you have green on budget, and the last time we talked, there were some real concerns about going from one budget level to the next level. And I know that's noted in the risk portion of the notes on these projects. So maybe you could just address that briefly. Thank you.
Yep. Address that now. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I think you mentioned on the next one, but that's quite a ways out. So
gotcha.
What's your feeling about, what is the next big budget milestones for the Benson and MP?
Benson and MPG. Yeah. So to back up just a little bit, the budget that we're showing for MPG is green at this report just because of the nature of where that reports out for the health of the contingency as well. Did want to note on MPG that early indication of the estimates for SD is that we're over budget. The exact dollar amount is what we're still working on to define. But it's somewhere in the range of probably somewhere around $6 to $8 million issue that we're trying to address on that project. That is very raw data without any of the conditions that we've seen along with that. So there's some effort to deep dive on the scoping of that to make sure that that delta is right sized to the reality of the scope. So we are, as I said, we're in process of that, and probably about 2 to 3 weeks away from being ready to define exactly why we're at where we're at. A number of value engineering ideas have been brought up already on that project, and so we're really not ready to share out the final assessment of that yet. On the main Benson job, we did come work through a plan for number of value engineering ideas and items also that in terms of cost reduction and in terms of targeted reductions around GCs and GRs and site logistics that we've been able to identify. And with that, and in combination of use of some of the contingency, are comfortable as of the last couple of weeks, have become comfortable moving forward into the CD phase. The next upcoming phase will be the 50% CD package is currently out for estimate, and that is going to be the basis of the GMP, and so that's going to be a real critical one for us here in the next month, say 2 to 3 months. As we work through that estimate, that's going to be the most critical estimate, obviously, for us on the project, and giving us health of the budget.
So the GMP will be based on 50% CDs? Wow.
Correct.
Is that, Marina, is that, Dan, is that what we've been doing in the past on major projects?
Each project is different in a sense of we start with a baseline, but then we look at the conditions that we have for that particular project. And Brian, I think you were going to go ahead and explain Benson in particular.
Yeah, Benson in particular, we did do the similar strategy with Anderson on grants, that our GMP was based on the 50% CDs. We're pretty comfortable with this path. It's always been a balance between how much risk obviously the discussion revolves around risk, as we all know, and on this project in particular, just for those of especially the new members too, there's a lot of history with the Benson project here. It is unique in that we spent an almost additional year in pre-construction, doing site investigations and analysis of the building, really deep and granular analysis of the existing structure to identify those things that would mitigate some of those risks that we've typically seen before at a GMP based on that level of documentation. But based on the information that we're getting back, both in the results and the depth and the scope that we've been able to investigate, we think that this is the right timing for the buyout of the project.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Norm. Good questions. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. So we just want to give you a flavor of how the MPG building design is shaping up. Bassetti's done a good job working in concert with Anderson. There's been a very integrated approach to the design and budgeting process. We are right now looking at a structure primarily built out of CLT, or cross-laminated timber construction, which is really exciting for us on this project because it fits in well in a number of different categories, not only in its sustainability, but also just as the specific design nature for the MPG building and its trauma-informed design approach and those sort of things, that the softness and the warmth of the timber construction has really lent well to and being received well among the stakeholders. So we're excited about what possibilities that's going to bring us and look like in the end of the day.
Brian, before you leave, that was great.
Yeah.
How does that material hold up in terms of maintenance and durability and that sort of thing?
Yeah, we're certainly looking into that. There are treatments that we're looking into. We've been studying whether we protect columns and things of that nature by either standard wraps, or do we go to a gyp wrap or some sort of laminated wrap at those locations. Corner guards are certainly going to be important if we use these around shaft areas or corridors and things of that nature. So we are looking into that. I think you're going to see a hybrid approach where you might have a certain elevation of that guarded with some wrap material and beyond that.
Thank you.
Yeah. It'll certainly be different than
someone
painting.
That hasn't raised 800 teenagers, is suggesting these beautiful columns they look delicate from here, but they're gorgeous.
Yeah, to fix the walls, you might bring your sandpaper, not your paintbrush. For the timber, right? So, okay, next slide. Like I said, the design and approach has been very integrated process with the users. It's a unique project in itself because we don't have a facility like this anywhere else in the district. It doesn't truly fit into, you know, like your normal high school or Benson program and ed spec and things of that nature. So it's a learning process for us. The design team's done a good job helping us keep the reins on that. There are a few spaces that have developed in the course of the stakeholder input that are a little bit different than what was shown in the original master plan. One is that there is additional CTE space, in particular a culinary teaching space that's on the table is being requested and looked at in the design. Maker space is another one that has been added in, and then a approach to have these separated and distributed science labs throughout the communities as well. So all those things are going to be showing up here in the next set of documents for that building. Okay. The recap on the Benson swing sites, we are in good shape on the budget. The equity is same as what we showed before, and the schedule is also in a green state as well at this time on the Benson swing sites. The Benson swing sites are made up of 3 components. I'm just going to explain that too for those that haven't been around it. There's 2 pieces out at Marshall, and so the Marshall swing site has 2 main components. That's the tenant improvements side of the project that's inside the existing building, and then there's the CTE annex, which is the new 20,000 square foot building out on the existing east lawn that we're constructing for auto and construction. That's the second component, and then there's Kenton as well, where MPG programs will be located for the 3 years. So this report is the combined is the combination of those 3 pieces. Overall budget is holding online. We have quite a bit of contingency here, and the note on that is that a majority of that contingency came from savings on the bidding process of the CTE annex. It's a pre-engineered metal building structure, and original estimates were set the budget at around $6 million, and the bid pricing came in around $4 million. So we've recognized about $2 million in savings on that project by going to hard bid.
Can I just jump in real quick? Darren,
Yeah.
You had your hand up. Did you want to ask a question before we move forward?
No, it was answered. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Next slide.
Yep, next slide. So we always like to include this slide. Benson's made up of a number of components, but most of this information that's in this slide, I did explain in the schedule portion of the project. So I don't think there's anything special to note on this. It's just more information to see it all in one place about where the Benson program is at in terms of the schedule. So if there are any questions?
And then if we could go back to Lincoln. All right.
Great. There we go. Thanks, everyone. Sorry about the technical difficulties. My laptop microphone decided not to be working. So anyway, called in on the phone, and so you might see my mouth move, but it's sort of delayed because it's coming through on my phone. But anyway, so yeah, for Lincoln right now, from a budget standpoint, I mean, just I guess an overall progress of the project, we're just under, I'd say from a project value standpoint, about just under 30% complete. So we've got a long ways to go, a couple of years left of construction. So, so in that, we're certainly projecting our estimated completion as our entire budget because we just don't really have a clear sense of projecting any savings at this point. And the contingency remaining here is just over 10%, which includes contingency that's outside the GMP as well as what's remaining in the GMP. Are there any questions on that? Otherwise, I can move on.
I just have a comment on that. If you don't mind. Characterizing contingency in two different ways, we ought to be consistent. And so from my way of thinking, the contingency that's in the CMDC, technically that's the contractor's contingency, even though the owner can benefit from it and has a role in managing it. And that but the contingency remaining from the budget really should be the contingency that OSM is managing and not within the CMGC. I think for consistency, I think it'd be useful if all the projects were consistent in how they approach that, as opposed to one including the contingency in the GMC and another one not. So it's just an observation on my part.
Our intent is to be consistent across the projects. We were trying to ensure that consistency, but it's the first time that we've actually called out the contingency in these reports. That was something that we were asked specifically to do, and so I apologize that we haven't quite achieved that consistency yet, but we will by the next time.
No, it was just it wasn't a criticism. It was just a comment, and I realized this first go around, we're going to have some bugs to work out, and what we're doing is discovering some of the bugs. Is all I'm trying to say.
Certainly.
Yeah, sure, you bet. I appreciate the comment. And for some clarification, it depends. It's really project dependent on where we have contingency, either inside or outside of the contract. We have actual owner's contingency inside the Lincoln GMP. So there's contractor contingency as well as owner contingency, so that we're not having to amend the contract for every single change order. So there is owner contingency that's within that GMP. Just not all of it, of course, but it looks like we got a little homework on trying to report this out a little bit more clearly. So, okay, and moving on to equity, I do know that the numbers with our consultants are not totally reflected accurately here. I think that they were behind on reporting their numbers, and so the data that I got in order to prepare this report wasn't quite complete. So I know we'll be able to update this with a bit more accurate numbers because they do have overall. I think Norm brought up the point earlier that this is showing percent of payments made versus contract value, and we know that we have about 15% of the consultant's contract value is contracted with certified firms. It's just not showing up as payments made. And I do think that they're behind in the reporting, so I'll be able to update that more accurately. We are performing a little bit better on the contracting side, on the contractor. Again, we're kind of where we are, where we're spending money. So I think this number could fluctuate depending on sort of in our next reporting where the money has gone to kind of since then. So, but this is a snapshot of where we are overall, and that our workforce equity is we're certainly getting having a challenge getting women workers on the site. That's been difficult for the team. Also, just within the current situation in the pandemic, we've had labor shortages, and we've had workers that aren't able to even come to work because they've got kids at home going to school. So that's kind of limiting some people from the workforce just in the nature of what's been happening. So we're hoping to see those numbers get better as we move forward and things sort of relax with our pandemic, as we hope it will be. Any questions about that before we move on to schedule? Okay, great. As far as schedule, we're certainly on track right now for substantial completion. We did get hit with some delays with permit, smoke closure, and the ice storm that hit us. And we're currently negotiating that with a contractor, but we're utilizing our weather days at this point. We we may be moving out our substantial completion for a week or so, but that hasn't been approved yet. So we still have more than a year to get to that point. We're definitely on track. We're seeing, so Lincoln is 2 phases. So we have the main school building opening up in the 3rd quarter of 2022. And then the track and field is opening up 3rd quarter of 2023. So this is why you're seeing 2 different indications of school opening. And I guess if there aren't any other questions, we can move on to the next slide. So yeah, we've had a lot of progress. Our structural steel system was complete. We had topping out in February, which was a really exciting event for everyone on site. We've also, topped out our CMU on the gym structure, which is that kind of sort of rectangle you see kind of underneath one of the tower cranes. Don't be confused by there is another building that's under construction kind of behind ours on 18th and Salmon. So that's a private development apartment building. But we've got, our building and their building going up at the same time across the street from each other. So there's definitely been some challenges coordinating that, but then that's been going okay. I think we go to the next slide. Just another overview. You can see the existing Lincoln building there to the east side of the campus. So as you see, we're doing all our construction on what used to be the track and field. When that's complete in 2022, then we'll kind of move our operation to the east, demolish the old building and rebuild the track and field on the east end of the site. So that kind of gives you a sense of sort of where we are physically on the site for this current phase. The next one, please. And there's a couple shots of what's happening inside our gymnasium, quite a large structure. We call this the mega gym because it's actually the auxiliary gym that's in the SPEX and our regular gymnasium combined into one sort of super gym. We didn't really have enough footprint to kind of create 2 separate spaces. So it's really just one great big giant gym, which is pretty exciting and fun to see the structure go up. There's that big steel stair that's coming from the ground floor that takes you up to that gym, the gym being on the 2nd floor. There's a shot of just looking inside the theater as the structural steel and the catwalks and stuff are coming together inside the theater. And then there's another image of our mock-up where we're testing out all the different details related to windows and exterior panels. And that is looking at the UHPC, which is ultra high performing concrete panel, which is has kind of a deep red color. So we're finally seeing that on the mock-up, and things are going great. So we're testing all kinds of things on this mock-up and finding some issues, and it's really helping us out. And as far as maybe I'll just touch on some of the risks that was asked before, kind of in the background data that we provided. We are seeing material shortages and delivery delays kind of across the board now. I think this is sort of a delayed supply chain impact from the pandemic, as well as the winter storms. There's some materials that we just can't get. So we're having to sort of make some changes in the field, say for the type of fireproofing we were planning on. We can't get that, so we're changing to a different type. We can't get spray foam insulation. We're looking for something else. Steel studs are 10 weeks out when they used to be just a few weeks. And so, we're looking ahead and instructing the contractor really look ahead to, see what we can order now and put in storage. And so we've got a number of kind of authorizations either in place or in process to authorize them to procure materials earlier because of the delays that we're seeing. So that's really something right now that's just kind of hitting us from the risk standpoint. As well as something we've been tracking, which is the PGE primary transmission line that goes under the site. And we're having to relocate that around the campus. And this was not something that came through with our due diligence process. So this is kind of impacting us a little bit later. We do have, there is money set aside in our budget for off-site improvements. So that's definitely helping with that. But there's just still some risk for getting all that work done. So, any questions? Thank you.
Jamie?
Hi, hello. I'm Jamie Hurd, and I'm going to talk to you about the Grant Upper Field Improvement Project. So this is a project that grew out of the Grant Bowl Master Plan and basically is focused on the upper field at Grant High School and adding a softball field to that multi-use field up there, and also adding lights and a PA system. So some of you, I'm sure, know this project for a while. You can see we are having some budget or schedule difficulties. We are on budget. Right now, in terms of equity, this project is not being tracked in the B2G process. Per the architect's contract, they will be at about a 36% minority inclusion. We don't have a contractor on board yet because we're still in DDs. So, but I think that we'll be tracking well. Our schedule difficulties were created because we got hung up in the land use process. So we submitted for a type 3 land use back in November. It was deemed incomplete in December, and we resubmitted last week. And as of yesterday, it was deemed complete, which is a huge milestone for the team. And we have our public hearing scheduled for May 10th. So we're very excited about that. We've been working with the design team and our construction manager, and we believe that we can start construction in this fall and still have the field complete for the 2022 spring sports season. So that is our goal. Any questions about that? Okay, maybe next slide.
Yeah, this is Darren. I've got a question.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I didn't see that.
This is just for the upper field. The lower field won't be receiving any lights or additional pieces.
Correct, not at this time.
Got it.
This is for one thing that's a little bit unique about this project is that we co-own this property with Portland Parks. So the bowl is entirely on Parks property, and the upper field is really split down the middle. The infield for baseball is on Portland Parks property, and the outfield is on Portland Public School property. So we have a couple different zoning, a lot of different stakeholders, but that is one of the complications with doing more improvements with the bowl. So you can see from this image, it is extending the newly constructed field that was done during the modernization. We're basically extending the field about 20 feet to the south. The really big change is that in order to be able to accommodate both sports at the same time, we have to have lights because there's just not enough time after school for both baseball and softball to have field practice. So that's why we're going through the type 3 land use. And that's kind of been the biggest design issue that we've had to work through. Next slide.
Do you mind if I follow up on that one more time? So you're saying that the upper field has to have lights because there's not enough time for softball and baseball. What are the restrictions that are stopping the lower field from getting lights?
I think so. We started off doing a master plan that did include the bowl. I think that it's the cost is probably one issue. There was not enough money. We didn't have the funds so to do the bowl, so we would have to have had, it wasn't covered in the bond. The funds for the softball field are actually being covered from the 2012 bond, and it was kind of split out as a phase one. I would say that's probably, we did a master plan to assess what it would take to upgrade the bowl. And I think funding and also a lot of neighborhood involvement. There's a lot of concern about adding lights and being able to have evening games, honestly, in the bowl. So it would have, that would have been the process. I don't know if you want to add anything, Marina, to that.
No, there's a significant history with the the bowl and the master planning effort that went into it. Darren, I'm happy to send you to all of the documentation on our website that can kind of give you the breakdown of the history and what it went through and the discussions that were there. But the budget was really not there to do both the bowl and the upper field. We were very happy that we had the budget in 2012 to modify the upper field to accommodate the softball and to bring lights to that. But the work that was planned for the bowl, or that was master planned for the bowl, was significantly more and was not funding that we had available in the 2012 bond.
Any other questions on that? Oh, so I think we have one more. Is there one more image on this? No.
Nope, that's the last slide.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any additional questions? All right, and Rolando?
Hello there. I guess this is the last project. Hopefully everybody's still awake. My name is Rolando Quilazon, and I'll present to you the Roosevelt High School Phase 4 project. If you don't know what it is for those newcomers to the BAC, it's a 10,000 square foot addition to the existing site at the north end of the building, which is the backside of the auditorium area, which is Sector A of the building. So anyway, as far as we're at, we're sitting pretty good. We finally got started. We had a little bit of delay in terms of getting the permit, with a few hiccups with some of the design and some of what the city needed to see in terms of our permit submittal. So that put us back a little bit behind on the project, and we finally got started on the project after in January, actually, when we finally got going. So that putting us back a little bit of delay, and also trying to work out our budget through all that at the same time. As you can see, we are unfortunately still in the red in schedule, and same with equity. Since we just started, we don't have anything much reported yet, as we haven't paid out anything due to the late start. However, this late start, and as we work into completion of the project, we're working closely with the school admin, and for the use of the building that we have, the Section A that we have taken away from them, just due to the requirements by the city that we keep those unoccupied for the duration of the project. As you'll see in the next slide, I can show you where we're at. So Section A, this is the back end of the auditorium, and this is the classroom. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm pointing at the pictures with my.
Darren has a question.
Yeah. Yes, please. Yes, sir.
Darren, your hand was
up. What
up.
was the question?
Apologies, I forgot to lower my hand.
Okay.
Oh.
So anyway, the back end.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. As you can see, we're finally out of the ground after, of course, there was also that weather delay. which added a little bit of 4 days to our delay, which we're trying to work out at the moment. And working with the contractor on this one as well as try to get it speeded up as best as possible. Yes, sir. You have a question?
Yeah, I was waiting for Darren. I was curious about what the red means for schedule. And I mean, normally the project's schedule is a pretty big deal because you've got a school opening, and that's generally a hard date. I'm just curious, are there similar challenges or implications for this particular project with the schedule, or do you have a little more flexibility?
The the schedule has got some definitely delay on it, just because of the late in acquisition of the permit and late start of the construction. In the photo there in the upper right hand corner, you see the back of the auditorium. That's Sector A, and the city wanted us to take that out of their away, since we're building up against it and using it to add our structure of the new building to it. So right now we've got it all cordoned off for no usage, but we are working closely with the admin on trying to get this online, the Sector A online, and also the building by October of 2021.
Whoa.
And yeah, we're working closely with, like I said, we're working closely with the school admin on this, and they're quite flexible on it, and as far as they're concerned. So, anyway, so we are, like I said, we are finally out of the ground. And at this point, we've got some CMU going up already at the building. We're moving as quick as we can to get this and the structure put in, and hopefully by end of summer and into the new school year, we give back the Sector A, pending a re-examination of with the city on our structure and making sure that it's sound. So all this, as you can see, the photographs are quite sunny, which is from a couple weeks ago. So all our foundations have been poured, and they've gotten into the existing building and putting up the walls that we're connecting to. And that's all I've got.
I'd just like to make a comment. I'm probably the only one that has the history on Roosevelt, because many of you are not around. But I think it would be useful for the benefit of the newer members to kind of explain what this Phase 4 project of Roosevelt is, and what it is adding to this facility that didn't get adequately covered in the original construction program. I think that might be useful. If you wouldn't take a minute, Marina or
sure.
Roland, to explain that, I think it's useful.
I can add some addition to that, as I was not involved in the original project, and maybe Dan can jump in down the road here. This is a 10,000 square foot addition to the building, to the new building, which puts in a dedicated CTE wood shop at the first floor. It's a 2-story building addition, which puts in a 2-story, a wood shop at the bottom and 4 additional classrooms at the top, at the second level. I believe, as I recall, I think the aspirational for, or the aspiration, I guess, enrollment for Roosevelt, the original Roosevelt project, I believe was what, correct me if I'm wrong here, I think was about 1,500. Is that right, Dan? Or
yeah, you're taxing my memory just a little bit on specifics, but I believe it was 1,300 or 1,350.
Yeah, 1,300
the original.
And yeah, that's right. Thank you. And then they're looking at an aspirational of 1,500 this time around. And the last time I talked to the principal over there, and they're looking at close to about 1,400 enrollment this year, if or next coming year, if all goes well, and everybody comes back to school, and that gives them additional room, additional classroom, additional space to work with, which moves the spaces that they have vacated into other purposes, like a makerspace and a science lab.
Okay, thank you.
There's a significant amount of history on this as well. I'm happy to, David Main shared in our chat here a link to the website. I'll send it out via email as well. But there's quite a bit of additional information on the history of Roosevelt High School modernization, this phase 4, and then understanding too that there is also funding set aside in the 2020 bond for planning for Roosevelt phase 5. So I will make sure that we send out a link to the website information on the history so that everybody knows sort of the backstory behind it.
Thank you.
And I think that's it for our project presentations.
Yeah. So we went a little long, which I was not surprised. It's hard to go through all those projects without having a lot of questions, and it's a lot of detail. So, and we're still working out the bugs, but hopefully we'll be out of here in a few minutes. This is the work plan that Marina presented to us at the offsite, if I recall. I went back and watched it again just to refresh my memory, and so the idea is we'll meet more frequently. Hopefully we'll keep our meetings within 2 hours, but we use it as a way to focus on other specific topics. And when we had our first meeting with Kenichi and I met with Marina to kind of talk about the upcoming agenda, you know, Kenichi mentioned a question regarding, you know, what's the workplace culture on the construction sites? Is it safe? And, you know, Marina said, well, the district doesn't really have a policy on this. And so it occurred to me that there are going to be a number of various issues that we're all going to be interested in that will have an impact on the bond program, but may or may not be in our charter. So that's why I sent out the email I sent out to all of you asking you for your take on, you know, kind of a combination of what you think we should be focusing on, and also other concerns that you would like us to address, so that when we do these work plans, we can make sure we talk about these and allow time for more detailed discussions. I think the business equity is a great example of the challenges we got into this evening already over this whole business equity challenges and what that's going to take. So what this was is an attempt by Marina to lay out a potential plan for how we are going to, what our agendas will be for our meeting, and at the same time allow some special topics. So there's an opportunity to talk in a little more detail about a specific topic as opposed to kind of getting off on a tangent a little bit during a project update, which we tended to do a little bit with the business equity issue. So with that, I hope you all had a chance to look at my short list that I made based on your feedback. The purpose of this was to share, this is what we're thinking. Any ideas or feedback that you might have. With that, I don't know if you want to add anything more to it, Marina?
No, but I'd be happy to hand it over to Dan if he has any comments.
Yeah.
I think just having the work plan, I think makes a lot of sense. People will understand what the topics are. It'll allow staff and BAC members to prepare for topics. And, you know, some of this, of course, will be staff preparing information and presenting, but it'll also be BAC members knowing what the topic is going to be and coming prepared to talk about the topic. Because I think with these special topics, we're looking for, you know, a give and take, if you will. We're looking to probably present information. We're also looking for feedback on how to improve. And if there are BAC members who have materials or opinions or ideas, you know, they know when to prepare for those. So I think as Tom and Kenichi and Marina and myself, as we look at the upcoming BAC meetings and what those topics are, I think we've got a number of really important ones here identified, and then weaving in or adding on the other ones, I think is the appropriate approach for how we're going to tackle these other topics.
Since there's silence, I'm assuming everyone thinks it's great. No, okay.
Greg raised his.
Yeah, I think it is great. So
I see that.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. 2 comments. One, I would make sure that the updates take no more than an hour, and then the special topics take an hour, so that we have some kind of an ability to have a conversation and about that. Heck, maybe even do the special topics first and the updates second. So if we run out of time, we've run out of time on an update, we can always read the update, but the real discussion would occur first. The other thing, Tom, is you sent out a memo this afternoon, and you had some other items on it that I'm interested in almost all of these. And I think these are also important to the ultimate success of the program. So I didn't know if those fit into a topic, or how were those going to be talked about, or if you had thoughts on that.
Yeah, I guess they were two reasons. One, I wanted to see if I captured kind of the essence of what I heard from everyone. And then 2, use that as in our planning, upcoming planning, to figure out how do we work these other topics into our work plan that aren't necessarily on the plan right now. That was my intent. Now, the other thing that Dan pointed out to me earlier is that we also need to revisit our charter and also look at how many of these topics that we're bringing up are really in our charter or not. And if so, how do we address those? And so more to come on that as well. And I think Dan updating me, he's still waiting for some feedback from the members of the board on the School Improvement Bond Committee, so they can make the additional updates to the charter, and hopefully we'll see that shortly. You want to add to that, Dan?
Yeah, we had a discussion around the BAC charter. We need to update it. If nothing else, we need to update it to include the 2020 bond scope of work. We also have a draft right now where we're looking at right now pretty much maybe some minor tweaks to just clarify role and responsibility, and nothing major that's in there. At the next School Improvement Bond Committee, the plan is to show another draft or to show the draft of what that is. And so that is on April 15th. So that's where we are right now. Not anticipating any major changes, more just minor tweaks.
Can I ask a question? Because I'm new to this group, but I'm looking at what we are charged with. And it feels like, there's a lot of time. How do we address the things that we're charged with? And I'm seeing where the bond revenues are expended only for the purpose approved, alignment with the goals of the long range facilities plan. There's a whole list. I'm a little thrown, because I thought that we would be spending some time and breaking into focusing on some of those, and some of it came up like as we talked about employment and equity, but this feels like the important meat, and I'm wondering what can be executive level summary, and where and how do we get to these questions, because this feels like the charge that I agreed to. And in this work plan, you know, how is that tying in with that list? So I'm just, I think I'm kind of echoing some of the things you said, Tom, but this was kind of, I'm trying to figure out the expectation I came with and where and how it interfaces with this process.
I can jump in real quick, and I would certainly, you know, invite any other comments, and if there's any of the board members that would like to comment, is, you know, the charter, it's certainly, you know, it's several pages long, but it starts off with the main charge is to review the progress of the bond against the voter-approved scope, schedule, and budget. So at the kind of at that primary charge, the regular updates and materials are developed so that the BAC can do that and do that at a high level. As the charter reads now, is the BAC meets quarterly. So quarterly reviews the bond scope of work, the schedule and budget, and then provides an update to the board. So that's the intent of, I guess, the bulk of where you see the project updates of doing that high level. And so those are supposed to be, I can't think of a better word than high level. They're also, within the deliverables and the scope of the BAC is to provide opinions and comments to the board or staff on those other items that are noted in the charter. And that's what we're trying to here identify as these are these special topics. And so it's more efficient if they are scheduled, if the board, if the staff and the BAC are aware of what those projects or what those topics are. And so not every meeting will the BAC, it's unrealistic to go through every one of those additional topics, but we want to be able to create a plan that's predictable, and when we can prioritize which ones the BAC, which ones the board, and which ones staff think are the most important, and that is the intention of this work plan.
I want to appreciate, Dan, when you started out your presentation today, talking about and presented that pyramid and the following slides that followed, showing the relationship between the board, the Bond Accountability Commission, committee. And so that was really helpful. But also I want to admit that I know I was riffing on someone else's comment about the materials used to wrap the columns. And I don't think that's high level. I think that's probably the level you don't want us to be at. That you'd like us to elevate, nice rendering, but not to go into the hardware selections on the cabinetry or whatever. So I just guilty, and I'll try to restrain myself from further comments about little bitty details.
Yeah, it's hard not to, because it's interesting stuff. I share the same problem. That was pretty good tonight, I thought. Anyway, I guess the other thing that I was thinking and listening to this and reading the charters, that charter is pretty comprehensive, and by its very nature could imply a fair amount of detail that we need to have some access to. And I have the benefit of being around since the beginning, when the bond program was very much smaller and much more manageable. And so we had time to kind of delve into the details and kind of learn a little bit more. And so I think the challenge for us going forward is this program has gotten so big and so diverse, it's going to be hard for us to still try to feel like we're really delving into what our charter says at the level that some of us need to be comfortable with recommendations versus high level. And so I think that will be the challenge going forward, is figuring out how to meet various needs on detail that they need, or we, in order to be satisfied, but at the same time not bog down our meetings with all this detail. So something we're going to have to work on. I'm hoping this will help a little bit with that. But
I'm still,
I don't know.
If I can just say, I'm still feeling like that list, while I'm hearing, you wouldn't do that every time. As topics come up, there was a good conversation around business equity this evening. I didn't find a space, for instance, when we talked about, there was a mention of a maker space. I had some thoughts. I had some things that could be potentially useful. How are we having a dynamic, keeping to the points, not going off the list that we already have, which is bond revenue expenditure, alignment with goals, business equity, low in maintenance, historic preservation. You know, if we were referencing that list, there needs to be a space to at least plug something in. It's felt like there's expertise in the room that I feel there could have been something a little more dynamic. I think we're still figuring a lot out. So I'm figuring a lot out, and will admit I'm new to this group, but I still feel like this work plan doesn't answer the dynamic of the meeting and the ability to give input at certain points and not get lost in real minutia.
It's a very good point, Angela, and I don't know if I can add a lot of value. I think I appreciate what Tom said, and I think there's two parts to this, and I think that's why the work plan has the two parts. There's the part A, that is that primary charge of what is the progress of the bond in relation to what the scope is that the voters approved, and then there's let's dive in deep to a topic. And there just needs to be time to dive into. There needs to be materials prepared. There needs to be time to dive into those topics. The performance audit that will go through in May. I mean, we're going to have the auditors, or we're going to have a presentation from the auditors. So they need time to give that presentation. There's going to be the actual audit itself. And so certainly that's when people are going to want to dive into those details. So there is a balance, and I don't think there's a right answer. We'll have to find what that right cadence is. But I think it is those two pieces of that primary charge, and then, okay, we have a focused topic. Let's make sure that we allow the time for the focus topic. So Greg's suggestion might be a good one of we're just breaking it in half, where half the meeting is for the overview, the other half is for our special topic.
I also would add that we've got a lot of ground to cover right now, and this time next year things will be a little smoother. We'll have most of the new members kind of up to speed. So I'm thinking part of the challenge right now is we just have so much that we're trying to get educated on or educate new members on, or that as we tick away at some of these issues, they hopefully subsequent meetings and coming years won't be so filled with issues, because we'll have had a chance to weigh in on a lot of these things, and policies and changes will have been made where there'll be less of an issue in the future. So I'm also looking at it kind of from that perspective. So initially, yeah, this seems a bit overwhelming, but in time, we'll whittle away at it, and I think we'll feel like we have a better grasp of all the issues, and going forward after we kind of muddle through this first year. Anyway, that's my 2 cents for what it's worth. Well, we went long. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. I would appreciate any feedback from the BAC members that you'd like to share with me. I took some notes as to some of the key issues I think that came up that we'll want to share with the School Improvement Bond Committee, and I'll take a crack at writing a report, but I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to be nearly as good as Kevin was. So any help would be appreciated with drafting this. So with that, unless there's any other questions, Marina or Dan, or I think we can call it a night.
Works for me.
Thank you.
Works for you. Well, thanks everyone for hanging on. We went a little long, but I kind of expected to do this first one, so we'll try to do better the next one.